Hello dear learners, welcome to this SWAYAM NPTEL online course on inclusive education. I am Dr. Umakant Prasad, an assistant professor from Department of Education, Vishwabharati Shanti Niketan. This is week 11 and today we are going to discuss lecture number 57, that is making a gender neutral educational space. During this lecture, we will discuss curricular and pedagogical reforms regarding transgenders, policy interventions and legal frameworks for transgender individuals. In contemporary educational discourse, the idea of gender neutral spaces has become an important topic, especially as global efforts for gender equality connect with local teaching practices. Gender neutrality in education goes beyond the traditional male-female divide. It supports and includes people of all gender identities in what is taught, how schools are run and rules they follow and how spaces are designed. Thus, this discussion looks at why gender neutral education is necessary and explores practical ways to create such spaces using recent studies, real life examples and policy guidelines. Creating gender neutral education space is not just about changing language or infrastructure, but it requires a deep shift in attitudes, policies and everyday practices. It involves rethinking classroom interactions, encouraging critical discussions on gender and actively challenging stereotypes that are often taken for granted. Schools and colleges must also engage with parents, communities and policy makers to build broader support for inclusive approaches. By promoting empathy, awareness and respect for all gender identities, educational institutions can become powerful spaces for social change and equality. Rethinking gender in education. Traditional education systems are based on cisgender and heterosexual norms, which often ignore or treat non-binary and transgender identities as wrong or abnormal. As a result, education is not just about learning, but it becomes a gendered system that leaves out those who do not fit into the male-female binary. Research by Kosiv et al. 2020 found that transgender and non-binary students face disproportionately high rates of bullying, anxiety and institutional neglect, which impairs their academic performance and emotional well-being. A gender neutral approach recognizes gender as a performance rather than a binary and calls for reforms that deconstruct systemic inequalities embedded in the schooling experience. Rather than merely promoting equality, gender neutrality emphasizes dignity, agency and recognition for all students regardless of their gender identity. Now, let us discuss about curricular and pedagogical reforms. Curriculum is not just a way to share knowledge, but it is also shapes ideas and beliefs, build the ideology of living. Bloomberg 2008 states that textbooks tend to overemphasize male perspectives and erase gender diverse narratives. The content, images and activities of textbooks typically support traditional gender roles and leave little room for non-binary transgender people. To change this, De Palma and Atkinson 2009 suggest making the curriculum more inclusive. This means adding stories and contributions from queer individuals and using teaching methods that open up discussions about gender, sexuality and power. Teaching training programs must incorporate modules on queer pedagogy to enable teachers to critically engage with gender identities in a sensitive and informed manner. Institutional infrastructure and design. Gendered space like separate bathrooms, hostels and strict dress codes create practical challenge for gender diverse students. Casey et al. 2012 explains that designs based on the male female binary often exclude transgender people and can even lead to harassment or violence. No matter how difficult the situation is, it can still be handled quite easily. In many cases, the following are some of the ways to do so. First one is dress code. Traditional dress codes often reinforce gender norms by requiring students to dress according to male or female categories. This creates discomfort and leads to bullying. So, it is necessary to make some changes. The way are: allow students to choose from a range of clothing options regardless of gender, avoid assigning specific uniforms to boys and girls. Institutions can introduce a flexible dress code policy based on comfort, modesty and personal identity rather than gender. Restrooms. Most of the schools and colleges have only male and female restrooms, which can be unsafe and stressful for transgender and non-binary students. The possible way to make it inclusive are: create gender neutral restrooms that can be used by anyone with private stalls for safety and comfort. Clearly label restrooms with inclusive sign like all gender restroom or simply restroom to avoid binary language. Ensure restrooms are accessible, clean and located in common areas, so students do not feel isolated when using them. Hostel and residential facilities. Gender specific hostels often leave transgender students with no safe option for accommodation, leading to discrimination, exclusion or mental stress. Sometimes they have to stay in private mess, which is very costly. The possible ways for eradicate these issues are: offer gender inclusive hostel options or private room choices for transgender and non-binary students. Ensure every building project considers privacy, safety and dignity for all gender identities. Train hostel wardens and staff to handle sensitive issues with confidentiality and respect. Silman 2016 emphasizes that implementing inclusive changes can significantly enhance the mental well-being and dignity of trans students. However, fostering truly inclusive environments require more than isolated adjustments. It is essential to critically examine and revise existing institutional policies and fiscal layouts to eliminate unnecessary gender-based segregation. Such segregation can perpetuate exclusion and discomfort, particularly for transgender and non-binary individuals. Inclusive design should be approached holistically, recognizing that true inclusivity is not solely about physical spaces, but also about reshaping attitudes, norms and institutional mindsets to support and affirm the diverse identities of all students within the educational settings. Now, let us discuss about policy interventions and legal frameworks. While national legislations have acknowledged the rights of transgender individuals, many educational institutions lack institutional policies that protect gender diverse students and also fail to implement those policies. Effective policies should respect a student's right to self-identify, allows name and gender changes in official records and also make grievance cell to offer ways to report and solve problems. Some international universities like New York University and the University of Toronto have a strong gender inclusion policies which can be adopted in Indian institutions. These include access to health care, mental health support and non-discriminatory housing policies. Teacher and administrative sensitization. Teachers are the main link between students and the school, but according to a UNESCO report 2019, over 60% of teachers in South Asia have gender biased views, which badly affects how LGBTQ students are treated. But in reality, only teachers play a key role as change makers in creating safe and inclusive spaces for transgender students. These responsibilities include supporting gender identity, helping transgender students feel safe and free to express their gender identity, promoting positive attitude, encouraging a respectful and accepting attitude towards transgender children to build a supportive school community, preventing bullying, following anti-bullying rules that are part of school policies with a special focus on stopping transphobic bullying as guided by official recommendations, inclusive curriculum, including transgender perspectives in lessons while also reflecting on their own voices and planning activities that support inclusion, providing safe accommodation, ensuring transgender children have access to safe, respectful and comfortable living or school environments, guidance and counseling, offering proper emotional support and counseling to transgender students as part of inclusive education efforts. Now, let us discuss about language and representation. Language acts as a performative force in education. Using only binary terms like boys, girls or giving only heteronormative examples in lessons can make a culture of exclusion of gender diversity. Teachers should use inclusive words like students or learners and avoid making assumptions about gender roles. Curriculum content, official documentation and public signage should also show respect for all gender identities. Representing gender diversity in these areas helps break stereotypes and makes all students feel seen and accepted. Now, let us discuss about mental health and psychosocial support. Russell et al. 2011 found that LGBTQ plus students who face bullying in schools are more likely to suffer from depression and have thought of suicide. To support them, gender neutral schools should provide easy access to mental health services, trained counselors and peer support groups. Institutions also create safe zones where students can freely express their concerns without fear or stigma. Mental health support should be seen as an essential part of institutional accountability towards its students. Intersectionality and marginalization. Gender often overlaps with other identities like caste, class, religion and disability, which can lead to even greater marginalization for some students. Crenshaw 1991 introduced the concept of intersectionality to highlight how overlapping identities produce unique forms of oppression. Mishra 2021 found that Dalit transgender students face more discrimination than transgender students from upper castes. So, inclusive education must look at the whole identity of each student, not just their gender only. Now, let us discuss about digital learning spaces and gender bias. The expansion of digital education brings new challenges. Gray 2009 and Kosiv et al. 2020 found that most online platforms do not support non-binary identities in forms and often do not have ways to stop online bullying. To fix this, educational technologies should be designed to include all gender identities and create safe online spaces for students. Learning Management System (LMS) should offer more than just male or female options and train teachers to manage respectful and inclusive online interactions. Students' voice and governance. Participatory governance ensures that policies are responsive to the needs of gender diverse students. Rawat and Senapati 2020 suggests including LGBTQ plus voices in students' union and colleges committees. Giving leadership roles to transgender and non-binary students helps make diversity more accepted and builds an inclusive institutional culture, and also motivates transgender people to overcome the gender identity conflict. Schools should also set up diversity cells with the power to suggest and carry out gender inclusive policies. These bodies can organize awareness programs, handle student concerns, and ensure the institutional respect all gender identities. Such steps can create a strong sense of belongingness and safety for everyone. Using correct names and pronouns. Using a person's correct names and pronouns based on their gender identity is very important. It shows respect and support the dignity of transgender individuals. Everyone has the right to be recognized as who they truly are. If someone uses the wrong name or pronoun, they should politely apologize. This small action can make transgender students feel seen and respected. Teachers and classmates should make an effort to learn and use the correct terms. Respecting names and pronouns is a simple but powerful step towards equality. So, it is very important to know how the proper names and pronouns can be implemented. It requires a structured and sensitive approach. Here are some practical suggestions. For example, inclusive admission form. Update admission and registration form to include fields for preferred names and pronouns along with legal names if necessary for official records. It includes options beyond the binary he, she, such as they, or space to self-identify. Pronouns sharing culture. Encourage everyone, students, teachers and staff to introduce themselves with their pronouns during meetings, orientations or classroom introductions. This helps normalize the practice and makes it easier for gender diverse individuals to share their comfortably. Display and visibility. Use inclusive signage around the institution. For example, all gender welcome signs in classrooms or pronouns guides or bulletin boards to promote awareness and acceptance. Use in assessment and records. Allow preferred names and pronouns in classroom activities, sitting charts, internal documents and group work, even if official records still use the legal name due to regulations. Family and community engagement. Creating a gender neutral educational space needs strong support from families and the community. When transgender students are accepted at home and in society, they feel safer, stay in schools longer and do better emotionally and academically. Institutions should run programs like parent counseling, awareness campaigns and community workshops to build understanding, acceptance and long-term support beyond the classroom. Regular meetings with the parents can help to address their doubts and promote empathy. Schools can also celebrate diversity days and invite community members to participate in open discussions. Involving local leaders and influencers can help shift community mindsets. These combined efforts strengthen the support system for gender diverse students. Monitoring and accountability. Any change in the education system should include a strong system to check progress and results. Institutions can create a gender inclusion score and let students give feedback or report discrimination without revealing their identity. Regular checks or audits by outside experts can help to see how inclusive the institution is. It can be implemented by Gender Inclusion Index. Create a checklist or a scorecard to measure how well the institution supports all gender identities. For example, inclusive toilets, use of correct pronouns, safe spaces, etc. Feedback tools. Set up digital or physical suggestion box where students can report issue without fear. Regular reviews. Appoint a diversity committee or invite external expert to check if policy are being followed and make suggestions for improvement. Action plan based on feedback. Use the feedback and audit reports to improve roles, teaching methods and facilities. Track progress over time. Any reform must be accompanied by monitoring and evaluation framework. Institutions should develop gender inclusion indices and feedback mechanism that allow students to report discrimination anonymously. Independent audits can also be conducted to assess the inclusivity of policies and practices. In conclusion, we can say building an inclusive educational space means removing deep rooted biases in how schools and colleges work. Every part of education, curriculum, buildings, roles and teaching methods needs to be redesigned to include and respect all gender identities. Education is not just for personal success, but it can help to change the society. As Lakshmi Narayan Tripathi says, transgender people need dignity, respect and acceptance, not sympathy. So, school must take this seriously and become places where all students feel safe, valued, supported and respected. To make this happen, regular training for teachers, student-led inclusion drives and clear anti-discrimination policies are needed. Gender neutral restrooms, inclusive textbooks and supportive counselors are also important. Most importantly, students should see their identities reflected and respected in everyday school life. Inclusion should not be an extra effort, but it should be the norm. There are some references here. Thank you.